Good morning and welcome, everybody. My name is Sonya Boyce, and I am the Executive Director of Surrey Women's Centre. I'm joined by my good friend and colleague, Corrine Arthur, who some of you know through her work in the community, particularly on our Surrey Mobile Assault Response Team.
Thanks, Sonia. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see some familiar faces online with us today and also some unfamiliar faces.
On behalf of Corrine and I'd just like to welcome all of you to Surrey Women's Centre and also take a moment to acknowledge that we are gathering, albeit virtually, on unceded First Nations territory. In the last couple of weeks, we've had the opportunity to visit with each of the 32 nations in our region, and we are so appreciative that some of you are joining us on the call today. The purpose of today's call is to share a little bit about the Surrey Mobile Assault Response Team and get a better idea from all of you how we can work together to better support survivors of sexual assault. And we think it's a rather timely discussion given the launch of the National Inquiry into the 1,800 missing and murdered Aboriginal women. So for those of you who we are meeting for the very first time, I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about Surrey Women's Centre so you can get to know us. We are a crisis center for abused women and children who are escaping domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse. We know that the earlier we intervene, the more effective the intervention, the safer women and children are. So our services focus on addressing those barriers we know to impact on the safety of women and their children, as well as access to critical resources, particularly in that 24 to 48 hour period immediately after an assault. And that's where SMART comes into play. Our Surrey Mobile Assault Response Team is one of our priority projects at Surrey Women's Centre and has been for the last several years. It's a 24-hour mobile crisis response for women and girls who've been sexually assaulted and also require emergency medical treatment. Now, in the early days, Surrey Women's Centre partnered with Surrey Memorial Hospital to provide both an immediate and a wraparound response for sexual assault survivors. Over the last 5 or so years, that partnership has really grown to include the entire Fraser Health Authority. So that's 12 hospitals located anywhere between Burnaby to Boston Bar. We also work with about 10 or so community-based agencies across the Fraser region. Now, from the beginning, our vision was that women and girls who've been sexually assaulted living anywhere in this region could get the support that they need by simply calling one number. Supports ranging from safe and free transportation to the hospital to ongoing support beyond the emergency room by simply calling this one number any time of the day, any day of the week. And so over the years, Corrine and I have talked about how Surrey Women's Centre can better use the hospital as a key intervention point for survivors of sexual assault, provided they know where to go and they have the means to get there.
Thanks, Sonia. What we've definitely learned is that many women and the people that ask for help don't necessarily think of sexual assault as an emergency, but sometimes it is. Even when injuries are serious, even life-threatening, there may be no immediate signs or symptoms. And for many women and girls, until they need a service, they're not aware that it exists in the community. Forensic Nursing Services is a specialized medical forensic emergency service that women really don't know about. Some of you may be familiar with Forensic Nursing Services as the Sexual Assault Nurse Examiners Program, or SANE. Forensic nurses are able to identify injuries that may otherwise go unnoticed. They are trained to collect forensic evidence, and they are able to provide expert testimony later in court. Forensic nursing really is the point at where health and justice intersect for women. But these are separate yet complementary roles. The role of the nurse must end in the ER so that she can maintain her credibility and impartiality as a future witness in court. So prior to partnering with SMART, forensic nurses shared with Sonia and I that they had actual concerns about their model of care and how it was contributing to a revolving door for women, and how it was not able to get women connected with the services they need after they leave the ER. And then there was the even bigger question. What about the women and girls that never even make it to the ER? This is the point at which SMART intervenes. It's a critical window of opportunity, and sometimes it's within minutes of an assault. SMART works with existing services to better serve women and girls. Our partnership with Victim Link is a great example of that. It allows our crisis line to be answered 24 hours a day. Our team is then able to intervene before admittance to the ER and remain connected even after discharge from hospital. One of our partnerships with the Ministry of Justice, for example, is able to provide free transportation then to women and girls so that they can access the hospital. Transportation is one of the biggest barriers for women, and sometimes it's the only thing standing in the way of a woman getting to hospital. It's usually a safe ride that she just can't afford. After an assault, women have a lot of important decisions to make in a really short period of time. So SMART is there to help women make informed decisions and navigate what is a pretty complex medical, legal, and social service system, step by step during a crisis. So again, what people may not know about forensic nursing services is that it's only available at 2 hospitals in our region. So that's Surrey Memorial Hospital and Abbotsford Regional Hospital on your map. These 2 hospitals are actually serving 20 municipalities, 32 First Nations communities, and 15,735 square kilometers. So if you look at that map, you can see that there's a very real link between transportation and the safety of women. And it's a timely conversation, again, because this week we heard the announcement that the provincial government is taking measures to address the lack of access to safe transportation along the Highway of Tears. That highway crosses from Jasper to Prince Rupert, and that 750-kilometer highway is bordered by 23 First Nations communities who we heard often rely on hitchhiking as their primary mode of transportation. Now, my point is that this is a very local issue as well. It's extremely relevant when you consider that east of Chilliwack, for example, there is no public transportation system. And from the furthest point in this region, which is Boston Bar, you're going to have to travel 2 hours to get to your nearest hospital. And of course, that's 2 hours in ideal weather conditions. It is also important to note here that to date, SMART has not transported anyone further than Hope. So that leaves us with concerns about the women and girls who may not know about us along the isolated Fraser Canyon, particularly because their nearest hospital to receive emergency care is in Hope. So our trips to both Spasm and Boston Bar have highlighted a few things about why women and girls may not be able to access our services and why they may need them closer to home. We also learned that we must be able to maintain their confidentiality. Community members talked about the need for women and girls to have access closer to home, and they made the link to women and girls, children being removed from their homes for residential school, and then the number of missing and murdered women who never returned home. They also noted that they need to have a say in how these services are delivered. So, with that being said, Surrey Women's Centre doesn't assume that the answer is just to extend SMART into the Boston Bar. We really do need to be considering a culturally sensitive response that meets these needs. But what we are prepared to do is continue to have these conversations with the community. And the reason we're really wanting to continue these conversations is that Sonya and I actually remember exactly when Surrey Women's Centre realizes we needed to extend our services beyond Surrey. I was actually sitting at a community coordination table in the Fraser Valley and was told the story of 2 Aboriginal women from Boston Bar who were sexually assaulted. Now, the story told to me is that they called numerous service providers in Chilliwack and Abbotsford looking for a ride so that they could get to Abbotsford Regional Hospital. As far as any of us around the table know, they never got that ride, which means they never got access to critical medical care, and their ability to gain justice further in court was really hampered. So a lack of access to services and a lack of access to transportation and the need to access care before making a decision about whether or not to involve whether or not to involve police really is what showed us that SMART needed to be a regional service.
And Corrine, if you remember, one of the most compelling factors in that story was that the cost of that ride was only $225. And in fact, over the years, when we have averaged the cost of transporting women to the hospital after an assault, it works out to a mere $25 a ride.
That's right.
After hearing that story, our goal was simply to increase the number of women and girls who could actually get to the hospital after a sexual assault. Prior to SMART, the highest number of women and girls who access the hospital for specialized forensic medical care in any given year was only 175. And that was back in 2006. In the past 12 months alone, that number has increased by 125%. Almost 400 women and girls have received specialized forensic medical care this year. On average, we receive at least one call out a day, although the weekends we tend to get multiple call outs. For the last 2 weekends, we've had 12 call outs between Saturday and Sunday. Since we launched SMART in 2012, since we launched SMART in 2010, we've served just over 1,200 women and girls. So for us, this is important because the hospital can be a key intervention point to not only identify, screen, and treat sexual assault, but also prevent future incidents of violence. And that's because SMART provides an immediate wraparound response, a bridge between the medical, legal, and social service systems, particularly in that 24 to 48-hour period immediately following an assault. Now, if we take a closer look at who is calling SMART, we realize that we're reaching some of the most vulnerable women and girls in our community and across the region. What we see is an overrepresentation of three highly marginalized groups. The first of which are Aboriginal women and girls, who account for approximately 1/3 of all the sexual assault survivors we see, many of whom disclose early and repeat incidents of sexual violence, as well as other forms of trauma. The women and girls we serve range in age from 2 to 96 years old. However, the largest age group are young women under the age of 18 years. In addition to experiencing a recent sexual assault, many of these young women are actually aging out of care. So they're becoming too old for the system, and therefore they're no longer entitled to some of the child protective services that they would have received before. But also, they're too young to take care of themselves and to navigate what are really some pretty complex adult systems on their own. Often they have little financial support, and they experience a rather abrupt transition from simply being girls to becoming adult women, leaving them vulnerable to trafficking for purposes of sexual exploitation. Another third are vulnerable street-entrenched women and girls. Now, of all the cases we see, they often experience some of the most serious and life-threatening injuries as a result of a sexual assault. But with all that being said, it's important to acknowledge here that there is significant overlap between these three populations. And so what that really means is that we are seeing a lot of young Aboriginal women who are at risk of sexual exploitation. A significant but unintended outcome of ensuring that women get to the hospital after a sexual assault is a rather high rate of police reporting. 6 out of every 10 women and girls who access SMART make a formal complaint to the police. This percentage is even higher when we consider the rates of reporting within the more marginalized population groups. So, for example, 80% of Aboriginal girls under the age of 18 who access SMART make a formal complaint to the police. We also offer anonymous reporting options like bad date reporting and third-party reporting. And when we take these reports into consideration, the rate of police reporting is even higher. It's 7 out of 10 women and girls who access SMART who are sharing information about sexual predators with the police in some way. Now, people often ask us if the reporting rates are so high because we make women and girls report to the police in order to access our services. And that's simply not true. We don't. What we believe is that when women and girls get the information, the support, and the advocacy that they need when they need it, they can, they do, and they will come forward. Because SMART responds on the front end, we are in a rather unique position to collect information about sexual predators, particularly those who are operating across jurisdictions because of our regional model. Now, you may remember the case of Novid Dadman. He was alleged to have posed as a photographer and target young girls through online modeling sites. One of his victims accessed SMART in 2012 here in Surrey. 2 years later, we learn Richmond RCMP has charged him with 11 counts of sexual assault, dating as far back as 2008. In summary, we see SMART as an investment in women and girls that has the potential to not only increase their safety, but also hold offenders accountable through our community partnerships and collaboration.
Thanks, Sonya. On that note about investment, I think it is important to talk about how much Canada is or is not investing in women and girls. There's actually a significant disparity in the cost of violence against women versus our investment in their recovery. When we look at those numbers, what we see is per taxpayer in Canada, there's a cost of $334 attached to violence against women. But on the investment side, we're seeing the equivalent of a cup of coffee, $2.77 per person. Now, why this is important to talk about is that other social issues such as tobacco reduction has proven that targeted investments are cost effective and they lead to improved outcomes. The question here is not really whether or not we need to invest in ending violence against women. I think we all agree with that. But rather, how much can actually be saved, both in dollars and cents and, of course, in the lives and futures of women and girls. So, on that note, I really think it brings us to our final question, which is really one for you, and that's that you represent a number of sectors on the line today and various parts of the region, and you've heard that SMART really relies on us working together to meet the needs of women and girls. So the question we leave you with is really, who else should SMART be talking to? We are going to leave you on our thank you with our contact information so that there is a proactive way for you to put us in touch with those people and to contact us if you have any more questions about SMART and what we might be able to do together. So on behalf of both Sonya and I, thank you so much for being online today.